You're watching Global Trade This Week with Pete Mento and Doug Draper.
Welcome to Global Trade This Week, Episode 2, 2024, and we are back in the saddle. I'm Doug Draper. I'm host number one, coming to you from the great state of California, Fresno, California. Once a month, I usually run this show out here. It's great to be out. And back in the saddle, as I mentioned, is my other co-host on the other side of the coast, Mr. Pete Mento. Pete, what's going on, man? Where does this podcast find you this week? I
am in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, which I believe means the good land. That if you haven't seen Wayne's World, you're not going to get that joke. But Alice Cooper is from Milwaukee, and he does a bit there. But I'm in beautiful Milwaukee, Wisconsin, which I do love this town. I love this town. Right now, not so cool, buddy. It's been snowing like crazy, and I drove from Madison to Milwaukee yesterday in an absolute whiteout blizzard. It's been a trying couple of days with the weather, but people here are nice, and it's a wonderful place to hang out. So in Milwaukee this week, I'll be doing the show next week from Seattle. I have a seminar with DSV that we're doing on next Thursday. Pretty excited for the first of our seminars, our 24 city seminar run for 2024.
Yeah, that sounds interesting, exciting, and tiring, right? I'm sure there'll be some travel stories coming down the pike. So
yeah, there will. But I love talking about this stuff, Doug. So I'm excited.
Yeah, for sure. The thing about Milwaukee, if anybody knows, there's Summerfest, right? It's all the concerts, and I know enough to be dangerous. But I heard this year, my in-laws are from Milwaukee, in that whole area. Oconomowoc is really where they're from. Anyway, Summerfest used to be like 10 days in a row, just boom, boom, boom. Roll up in your Harley, set up camp, and just go bazonks. Now I think it's like 3 weekends in a row, and it's all gotten to the point where they can bring more people in. And maybe that's been going on for a couple of years, but the first time I heard about it was over the holiday break. But yeah, it's morphing and changing, but Summerfest is a good party to be had up there.
Yeah, it's like Jazz Fest in New Orleans, which is 4 weekends now. Friday, Saturday, Sunday, you're getting 12 days of music now. Same thing here. And the bands they get for Summerfest are awesome. Just awesome. So yeah, it's a lot of fun. One of my favorite stories about Milwaukee is when you fly into the airport, somebody on top of one of the warehouses painted in gigantic letters, "Welcome to Cleveland."
Is that still there today?
It's still there, yeah. So when you fly in and you look out the window, depending on which side of the aircraft you're on, you'll see on top, "Welcome to Cleveland," these big letters. I think that's fantastic.
Yeah. You know what else is fantastic, Pete? This show, and it's about to start with our topics here in 3, 2, 1. You go first.
All right. Thanks, buddy. So topic number one this week is something that I think all of us on the custom side were waiting to get a definitive answer on. And boy, did we get it. On the 18th of December, Customs released a ruling where a relatively small operator of customs house brokerage asked Customs if it would be against the law for them to use foreign employees to enter all the data entry on a customs entry and to clearly define the role of a customs house broker. This all comes from a very simple rule. When anyone who becomes a customs broker learns this, that says that all customs business must be supervised by a U.S. customs house broker and that it must be done in the U.S. customs territory. Well, what was customs business? Right, that's a little harder to define. Many of us have thought that it was the transmission of the entry to CBP, talking to customs face to face, but it's bigger than that. It's broader than that. And for probably a decade now, Doug, there's been a real push and pull between more traditional customs house brokers and the quote unquote e-brokers who are using this gray area to do a tremendous amount of the work in foreign service centers. Mm-hmm. They also used foreign service centers for HTS classification, commercial invoice creation, document creation, holding their records. Well, Customs has come out and definitively said that can't be done. This is all considered customs house business, and it must be done in the U.S. customs territory. This is also on the heels of a pretty big change with Customs regarding how they enforce us, the customs house brokerage community. In 2022, the rules changed where we take on more responsibility. And customs has said without saying, right? They've kind of put through the coconut telegraph that they were going to give the customs house brokers a little time to get ready. So there was going to be not a grace period so much, but some time to kind of catch up with the regulations. And now in 2024, we're going to be under more scrutiny and more enforcement than we have ever before. And I think there's going to be a lot of companies who are going to find out that their business practices were not necessarily in line with what customs expected. How they enforce it, I don't know. I can't tell you for sure. I don't know if they're going to shut people down. I don't know if there's going to be big penalties for the past, or if they're just going to say, hey, knock it off. Now that we've come out and definitively said something, you need to move on in the right direction. My inclination, right, is that they're going to actually go after people for things they've done in the past, because customs house brokers, as hard as this might be to believe, are enforced even more brutally than importers. We have a pivotal role. Customs thinks we should know better, and they generally come after us harder than the people that we serve. So it's going to be an interesting year of change for a lot of companies that have been doing it this way. I'm praying for them, and of customs coming down pretty hard on those of us that transact this business to do it the way that they expect us to, Doug.
Yeah, that's interesting. When you mentioned this topic this morning, I was unaware, right? And I'm sure I am a perfect example of the vast majority of people in the supply chain and logistics world. But I think the key, two things here, and I'm sure we're going to mention this first one multiple times as we walk through the show over the years. It's an election year. What do? Do you chill out and let it ride? Do you enforce? Depends on which side of the group you're trying to gain votes from and everything else. So we're going to be I am personally going to be very careful on my comments related to political matters. But the other piece is, what about the AI? Is this going to hyper accelerate the use of artificial intelligence to do the blocking and tackling of an entry? We spoke about that. It's on the horizon. So did the horizon just become a lot closer and smack us in the face with this ruling? And it's all going to depend on if they the enforcement strategy. So
that's the $1 billion question, Doug. What you just asked is, given how technology has become so pervasive in our industry, and everybody, I don't care if you're doing truck brokerage, customs house brokerage, air freight, ocean freight, we all use our technology platforms to make us more efficient by inserting information and language into documents. So what's customs going to say about this when so many logistics platforms, our operating systems were created with that premise of speeding things up by having connectivity from the point of origin to the point of import? It's going to be a hell of a year, Doug.
Yeah, good point. I like that one. I like that topic. All right, man. My first topic is 2024 is going to be the year of autonomous trucking, right? There's been so much hype in the last couple of years related to electric vehicles and how do we get these Class 8 trucks to become electrified, right? And if anybody's followed it, the Nikola saga, I can't remember the gentleman's name, but he's now, I think, in jail for fraud, the whole 9 yards. And so that's kind of waned. It's a little more difficult. There's all kinds of challenges with weight issues. How do you charge these things? It's a whole nother topic, right? But the infrastructure to support something of that scale is just not in place right now. And so that's going to be challenging, especially in easy, adaptable markets like the LA ports, Houston, and things of that nature. So my take is that it's going to be the year of autonomous trucking, specifically with a company called Kodiak Robotics, right? I just saw that their 6th generation is ready to go live in Texas. And the couple things here, Pete. Number one is, the way I understand it, it's a retro uplift of existing. So they're not building new trucks. They're uplifting or retrofitting them. So that means the adaptability is a little more quickly. There's a heck of a lot of redundancy in these things. I'm sure that is an absolute get it. Makes me feel safer. I think they're going to hype that and really underscore the safety, especially with the 737 MAX that's transpired in the last couple of days. Here's the one thing that companies like Werner, IKEA, the U.S. Department of Defense, Tyson, CR England, And then Loadsmith just committed to like 800 units. Maersk has even engaged. So there's lots of big names, multi-billion-dollar companies that are embracing this. And obviously, this works well out west, right? Texas is the epicenter of testing. So the I-35 corridor is going to be huge for this, and then the long hauls from Kansas City to Denver, Denver to Salt Lake City if you go up and around. But here's the deal, Pete. Last thing I'll say on this is here's what autonomous trucking brings to the table: efficiencies, managing driver shortages, safety, maintenance, reducing accidents. All of those things equals saving money, right? The challenge with EV is it's a nice to have, but in the big picture, it didn't save any money. And these are all businesses, and you got to follow the money. And so the adaptability of the autonomous trucking industry, there's others out there beyond Kodiak, but it's really going to ramp up in 2024. And it's all related to the cost savings that are involved, not a nice to have with an electric semi that you can showcase because you have one in your fleet. So it's the year of autonomous trucking, my man. What do you think?
Just want to clarify because, when I saw this topic come across last night, this is converting just regular diesel and fossil fuel trucks to have autonomous control.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can't wait to learn more about it. So, when that came up last night and I saw the topic, I kind of had this I'm a moron moment, like a Pete Mento moment. Why hadn't I heard more about this? Like, why haven't we heard more about this idea of converting what's working now, I guess, depends on who you are, whether or not it's working, but these diesel trucks, smaller gas trucks, why haven't we just tried to convert their drive systems to one that's controlled by a robot? And, why haven't I heard a lot about this? Was it because the people that were making these trucks are in direct competition with the EVs and they didn't want to, or they didn't have the technology? I didn't know, but what a fascinating topic, Doug. What a fascinating idea that in the meantime, while we figure out the weight problems and the battery problems, maybe we can take one of the things that we think will be an effective solution and apply it to the existing technology. Really, why aren't we seeing more about this? Why aren't more people talking about it? If I were Killingworth or Mac or someone like that, I'd be pushing this on my trucks I have now.
Yeah. Well, it's definitely a strategy they have rolling out. So we'll have to have our listeners do a little bit more research and give us your feedback. We ask for feedback when we post these things out. So give us your thoughts on what you think there. So, all right. My favorite part of the show is halftime. You and I banter about stuff that has nothing to do with logistics, maybe every once in a while. But it's brought to you by Cap Logistics, which is our producer and our host, and providing us the platform. So, Pete, you let it rip, brother. I got a cool one, but I want to go second this go around. So, what do you got for halftime this week?
I binge a lot of shows, even shows that I've watched before, because I'm flying a lot. And there comes a point where I just need to not work on the plane. And I watched all of Game of Thrones from start to finish. I rewatched Mad Men. And I was really, beyond tickled, Doug. I was euphoric when yesterday morning I was having my breakfast at the Fluno Center at the University of Wisconsin. And I opened up Amazon, and lo and behold, my friend, Northern Exposure was available for streaming. And this has been something people have been crying out for. Go on the internet, go on Reddit, go anywhere, and they're going to say, where is Northern Exposure? 8 seasons. I think it's 13 episodes a season. And the reason that they couldn't do it was because there was so much music that was used in the show, and they were having a hard time with the rights associated with it. And I guess they've overcome that by, in many cases, laying down alternative tracks that they could get. So they would remove the music that was used before, and they've overlaid it now with music that they could get the rights to. Really interesting. But the show, for me, I remember when it came on, it was something that I actually bought a VCR to record so I didn't miss episodes. And I just liked the idea of a fish out of water from New York. For those who don't know, he's a doctor, and in order to pay back a loan that he was given by the state of Alaska, he has to be a doctor in a rural town, and all the personalities, all the weird people that are in that small town are all very relatable, and the stories never got boring. I was fortunate that a friend of mine took me to the town in Seattle, in Washington, where they actually filmed the exterior shots of Sicily, Alaska. Beautiful. And I love that show. So I have been to Alaska a billion times, Doug. I shipped up there. I've spent plenty of time in the Great White North. It's breathtakingly beautiful. It is an odd place. As much as I love it, Doug, I don't know if even me, Mr. Curmudgeon, I don't know if I could handle living in a small Alaskan town. So that's my question this week, Doug. I know you're moving to a place a little more remote, but it's not remote. There's still a lot of people there. Would you move to Alaska?
No. Nope.
Next topic. No, you wouldn't be able to do it?
No, which seems counterintuitive because of where I'm moving, or have technically moved. But yeah, I don't know, man. It would be fun for a bit. And then I think I would go nuts, especially in the winter. The beauty, all those type of things, I get it, right? But
that's what I don't get, Doug. Like, you and Keenan are big skiers, you're big outdoors people. I would think that it would be, I'm a big hunter, so for me, Alaska would be a paradise for that part of it. But all that stuff, I mean, the two of you live outside, even in the winter, so you wouldn't do on that?
Yeah, you can eject and get back into society pretty quick in Colorado, right? I mean, I would be afraid that, I'm starting to get more claustrophobic when I get older. Like, I go through the Eisenhower Tunnel for people that are here in Colorado. You're probably in that thing for, a minute and a half if you're driving. I freak out if things slow down or that's ever stopped in there, right? I would feel the same way with the isolation of being in some town that the only way in and out is on a plane, and there's a storm and I'm running out of food and I'm in a panic. So no, I would not want to live in Alaska.
I'm interested to see what Keenan thinks when we get off the show, if he would do it, if he'd be up there making his gorp and, living off of moose burgers, but I guess we'll find out. All right, Doug, what's your halftime topic?
All right. So mine is all about space, which is kind of like Alaska to some degree. Right. And so, there was a moon rocket. I'm trying to remember the name of it. Do you remember the name of it here? I wrote it down. I'm looking it up here. It's
talking about the new Atlas, the new SpaceX ones that they're doing.
Yeah. This is how pathetic I am with doing it. But anyway, I was going to talk about that and how there's human remains that are on the rocket, and like shortly after the takeoff, it's been redirected because there's a fuel leak and there's not enough juice to get it to where it needs to be able to land. So the whole thing has just been, it's still in space, it's still doing some things, but it's coming down, and human remains will not be sprinkled on the moon. But I started doing Peregrine. That's the name of it. Peregrine. Peregrine. Anyway, so it got me looking at some space things, and this one really caught my attention, Pete. Super important, and I'm going to read some of this because I don't want to mistake, because this is super important stuff that's going to affect you and I probably tomorrow, right? So there's a doctor who is at a research university who has spent decades studying Neptune and Uranus, but she's not been involved with the study. But they're essentially saying that the color change in Uranus is not as dark blue as had originally been indicated. That those two planets, the color, Pete, is more closely aligned. And Earth-based studies, this is what I'm going to read here. The comprehensive study should finally put both of these issues to rest. Well, I didn't even know there was an issue with the two colors of a planet, right? And this is the other one, it will be vital. I don't even understand what this means, Pete. It will be vital in placing the discoveries of this future mission into their broader context, right? So I don't get it. I don't understand how discovering that one planet is a different shade of blue than we used to think of. We don't really have that many problems down here on Earth. And so I just caught that out as the absurdity of certain things. And I'm sure there's some scientists out there that are going to, rip me because it has some sort of value. But my life is really going to change tomorrow, Pete, now that I know that information. What about you?
Well, Doug, friend of the show, Alan Gear, who you met him at Microsoft.
Yeah.
He is the only person that I know that is more obsessed with the space program than I am, and we've talked about stuff like this. So the planets you're talking about have been unexplored by human probes, and the colors that we see are generally a good indicator of the environment that's the gases, the material that's on that planet, and the spectrums of light that they show up on. So our ability to explore, to send probes and that kind of thing will be really go hand in hand with the environment that it's going into. And if we've been basing our science off of what we've been seeing, right, we might have to completely change the way that we determine how we're going to land on those places with probes in the future, what it could mean for human exploration. There's some planets that we'll probably never put a person on, like Mars and Jupiter, but Venus is a possibility that's the next step after Mars. That's probably where that comes from. If you're not watching For All Mankind, it's an incredible show. Mm-hmm. And it gets into the opportunities that come from space exploration, rare earth minerals. In this season, they're actually focused on exploring, finding meteorites out in space. In this particular season, one is made almost entirely of iridium. And iridium is very important for the future of EVs and our technology here, but there's very little of it. So how would we use exploration to get that? A lot of these rare earth materials are on Mars. Would it be worth bringing that back from that way? That's how they're going to monetize these explorations. That's probably where it comes from. But yes, Doug, that is a pretty weird, interesting, but weird area of science. I would love for someone, Alan probably knows, to tell us why the colors are so important. But that's, yeah. I mean, it just points out how dumb the two of us are that we don't think about.
Dumb, uneducated, and disinterested. Right. That would be my thing.
We move boxes of crap for people. That's what we do.
Yeah. Anyway, it would be fun to talk to Alan about it because maybe I'm completely wrong and it will literally impact my life starting tomorrow. But we'll have to see. So
yeah, buddy.
Anyway, that wraps up halftime. Cap Logistics helped put that together for us. Please check them out on their service offerings at caplogistics.com. All right, bud, you're up. Number 2.
Second topic, I was doing some research for my seminars, and I came across a pretty interesting statistic. American LNG gas exports from November to December since the October 7th, nastiness that went on in Israel, more importantly, with the Red Sea issues, have gone up 35%. 35%. So American energy exports are going through the roof right now. And that has a lot to do with the inability of vessels to go through the Suez and to transit the Red Sea. And in particular, Europe needing to get as much energy as possible from the U.S. So if you start reading about this on Bloomberg and Forbes and Financial Times and The Economist, all of them say that this points to what's probably going to be a decade or more of American increased exploration for natural gas, drilling for natural gas, and then exporting it, which is super important for the American economy. But another knock-on effect that they mentioned is increased exploration and drilling is probably going to mean more oil and gas in the U.S., which should probably dramatically lower gas prices. Mm-hmm. So really interesting that there was a knock-on effect, like a silver lining of what's going on over there, which is kind of a re-embracing of American energy exports and the money that comes from that. So it was a fascinating rabbit hole I went down over the last couple of days. But 35%, that's no small potatoes, dude. That's not marginal. That's a big deal.
Yeah.
And you're saying it's probably going to grow even higher. That this time next year, if the conflict continues, it could be as high as a 50% increase. So pretty interesting.
Yeah. Well, when you got all the chaos and you got to drive or navigate your vessel around the Cape of the Horn of Africa, right? Hey, let's just go over here to the U.S. and buy some stuff and have the transit time a little bit shorter, and our whole supply chain is condensed back to the level that it was, and our citizens and the things we need to use oil from are not impacted. So totally get it. The one thing, Pete, that you just brought up that I had not thought of is that if there's a buyer and we have their product they want to buy in the ground, and we're going to find more of it to sell more of it, we're also going to benefit. Initially, when I saw this topic, I'd be like, it's going to be punitive and punitively affecting us.
Yeah.
But I think you're right. Just literally turn on the gas and let's see. And I think that it's an interesting spin. I had not thought of that one, Pete. But yeah, we'll have to see how it plays out.
One more thing to add to that, Doug, West Texas guy, Colorado, Kansas, Louisiana as well. A lot of jobs are dependent on this particular area. And because of our embracing of alternative energy, a lot of those jobs have been slowly slipping away. This could be a reignition of that whole job market, which, Odessa and in the Permian Basin up in Texas, they need it. So it's good for Canada as well, which I think I neglected to mention.
Yeah.
All right, Doug, bring us home, bud.
All right. Well, this headline, right? I always try to come up with a fun headline, and this one is "Don't Sleep on Bradley J." Right, and I'm talking about Brad Jacobson. I don't know if you've seen. He's starting to. Well, he grew XPO through acquisitions and mergers. He made a lot of money for a lot of different people, and then he split it off. Right, so he built it up, and then he split it off, and now he's moving on to his next thing. A lot of people may not realize that he did the same general concept with United Rentals, which does commercial renting of larger equipment, and then not Waste Management, but there was another waste company that he started. So his angle is ingenious to find unsexy, under the radar, not poorly automated, but just old mom and pop operating industries that are absolutely critical and taking them up. So what I'm talking about, Pete, and I'm going to pull some of this stuff up. So he's starting a new venture called QXO, and he's going to basically have a tech forward building products distribution through accelerated mergers and acquisitions. That's the aspect. So, the Georgia Pacifics of the world, the ABC Supply, those type of companies that are providing it, construction, HVAC, infrastructure, landscaping, and he's going to bring it all together, overlay some tech, and then probably break it off in the future. I don't know if that's true or not, but the guy found another unsexy industry that he's going to ramp up, change the dynamic and how it grows. And think about the housing market, Pete. I think there's you could talk about different statistics, but 3 million, homes that are short, 3 million units or dwellings underneath demand right now. And so there's going to be a whole heck of a lot of building when that interest rate drops a little bit more. There's going to be a lot of retro building, a lot of infrastructure management and replenishment. So it's genius, right? I have a lot of respect for this guy. He's done some amazing things, and don't sleep on Bradley J. He's going to do some amazing things, and I think his name's going to be up there with Gates and Bezos with everything that he's doing. And if anybody knows Brad Jacobson or Bradley Jacobson, we want him on the show. I want him on the show. Hell, I'll just do my own little podcast on the side and interview him. I think the guy is amazing. He's done some amazing things, very forward thinking. And check out QXO. And by the way, he's involved with a logistics company that can move all this stuff around XPO. So it'll be interesting to see how this whole thing develops. And anyway, I saw it on the news the other day, really dove into it and thought it was really interesting and wanted to share it with everybody.
Yeah. I started looking. I hadn't heard about any of this, Doug, until you brought it up. And it's very Berkshire Hathaway, if that's a way of describing it. It's a bedrock kind of industry that could use some disruption, but it already makes great money. So just by doing it the way it's done now, there's just nice cash to it. So if you can find a way to make it more efficient, you're going to make even more money. And then doing it at scale, you're going to be able to control markets. So yeah, this was a pretty interesting topic in that it has so much to do with what we do. A lot of those materials are imported. A lot of them are going to be moved vast miles from where they were originated to where they're going. And I just think it's interesting that even in 2024, when you think nobody can find a way to automate something, no one can find a way to combine it, there's still so many industries like this that could really gain from consolidation and the insertion of some technology, and then just having somebody really move it at scale. So fascinating, really fascinating. Got a feeling it's going to make a lot of money.
Yeah. Well, if anybody knows Bradley J, have him call us, man. I'd love to talk to him in more detail about it. So
we'll just have to stalk him on LinkedIn, buddy. That's what we'll do.
Yeah, exactly. Cool. All right, that's all I got. Yeah,
that's going to do it for us this week at Global Trade This Week, brought to you by our good friends at Cap Logistics. To learn more about Cap Logistics and their services, check them out at caplogistics.com. I bring this up all the time. We don't work for Cap Logistics. And for years now, they have been supporting the show, making sure that this content gets out to you. So please do us a favor and go ahead and check them out. Thanks to Keenan back in the booth, and thanks to all of you for watching and listening. And we'll see you again next week with another edition of Global Trade This Week. See you, Doug.
Excellent. Thanks. Take care, guys.